What's raging, gamers? Welcome to Rage Quit Video Game Talk Show. How you doing, HenricK The WrecK?
It's time for the stream. It's time to rage. I'm ready.
Yeah, man. Man, it's going to be a jam-packed show, right? We got so much to discuss, and we might as well kick it off with the bang and show you guys a lot of viral content that is circulating all across the World Wide Web. So let's get it. Music legend, you might have heard of him. His name is deadmau5. Is it prepping for a world tour? And you might be wondering, why is he being brought up in Rage Quit? Well, he's modding his DJ gear to drop beats and bosses in an upcoming Elden Ring stream. Maybe he's feeling the hype for Night Rain. Well, who needs a controller when you've got a turntable that could probably parry better than some of the, what is it, Millennial? I feel like I've always been butchering the boss name this entire time. I know. You've never corrected me all these years when I've been trying to make disses about a certain gal. Or maybe you have. I know, right?
All right, I've tightened this up a considerable amount. So now we have our lock, so we can just get on target, so no matter where we're at. So I don't have to really worry too much about the camera position, which is pretty cool. Got my quick hit, big heavy hit, can jump, and then use the scratch pad to roll. And then if you'll hold jump and roll, and then you can do those like big ass roll attacks.
I got an idea for you.
Yes.
Okay. Next live show, you whip this baby out, you start playing the game as you're DJing.
See, wouldn't that be
insane?
insane?
Impress the crowd.
Live at like an EDM festival or some shit like that. Yeah, that would be actually awesome. So especially since, tariff prices are, increasing the goods on video games. Maybe we need to utilize some of our musical gear to be the controllers.
Maybe.
In the end. But
it's
let's
just
go ahead
sitting around,
Yeah, exactly. Why let it collect dust? Why be that future DJ just doing it alone in your own bedroom when you can bring the whole world with you? But we got deadmau5 playing Elden Ring on CDJ before GTA 6. Yeah, I know some people are definitely feeling the classic. Yeah, we're probably gonna have to wait until 2027 for Grand Theft Auto 6. Just face it. And then we got playing this during a set would be the pinnacle gaming. Oh, not the pinnacle live set, the pinnacle of all things gaming.
Yes, I agree. It's just an awesome, yes, this is gaming taking over moment.
I love it. And then why not use the wheel to turn? And then deadmau5 responds, who turns in battle? Maidenless behavior.
I love how he just gets it. He gets it.
And then also showing the love to his own fans and gamers around the world. But what's also receiving a lot of hype, whether it's positive or negative, HenricK? That is HBO, and it is halfway through season 2 of The Last of Us, and gamers are feeling inspired to brave the apocalypse again on permadeath mode, no less. And let's just say it's not the clickers, the bites, or the lack of ammo that will end your run. This person found out the hard way that sometimes it's just you don't have it in you.
But it's hard to tell.
Oh, what a way to just end it. Yeah,
well,
I don't think I'd want to continue after that. Just be like, you know what? Think that's it. That was my chance.
Well, yeah, especially when you spend a couple hours into it, right? You just finally landed day one in Seattle, and anybody that's just played it, the fun just finally begins, and that's when the combat actually starts to ramp up. So if you're dying from this, I don't know if they would make it much longer. I don't even think they would even reach the end of Act 1, matter of fact. But that didn't stop. Oh, really rough time. But that didn't stop gamers from bringing the onslaught into the comment section. Well, why were you swinging? Yeah, exactly. A little trigger finger itching can sabotage your entire permadeath run. And then, HenricK, we got this. Wish this would happen in the show. Ooh. Are you feeling that way with
People
the HBO?
Really don't like Ellie's portrayal in the show. And you know what?
What about Pedro Pascal? Well, some people don't feel like Craig Mason,
he's only portrayed
the showrunner.
For so long in the show, Chris.
Well,
he's no longer the anchor.
Okay, forget about the actors. Some people are, upset with the showrunner, Craig Mazin, the guy that brought on the iconic Chernobyl, which is a fantastic limited series. Some people just don't like the direction that they kind of showed why Abby went after Joel so early, because that's not shown in the actual video game. Do you feel like that was a misstep in the wrong direction, or do you feel like that's something that's going to be set up in, let's say, a season 3 of HBO series?
Well, it maybe couldn't be told as well as it could be in the game format because you have a lot more time. But they've just been making a lot of other mistakes in the series so far. And
yeah, it's
I
definitely
think it's one of the minor ones in comparison.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I wasn't very pleased with the casting direction, but like this latest episode, I thought was fantastic. I felt like it really touched a lot of bases with The Last of Us Part 2. And,
right.
you know, sometimes when you hear those, that musical guitar, that acoustic, oh man, it puts you in your feels, that's for sure. And then you get the comments like this. I always thought an official permadeath mode is dumb because a glitch could just make you lose 20 hours unfairly. Just play the normal mode, and if you die from a glitch, keep playing. If you die a valid way, delete the save. Trust myself way more than the game. But you're missing the point. The save factor is what brings peace in mind.
Yeah.
Knowing that you made it happen, right? Not just like religiously tapping, you know, the save button like you're playing Fallout 3 all over again.
Yeah, but I also get it. You know, games are just glitchy, so things like this happen.
All right, man, that's a skill issue. But then, you know, we get this. This is really, really cool. Setting up and knocking down dominoes has become a proud Bethesda tradition, and the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered is keeping the mayhem alive. And so one player spent 7 hours lining up an in-game books just to make them fall in a perfect chain reaction, because who needs dragons when you've got physics-based literature?
And yet, this is still something you cannot do in 2025's Avowed.
Well, what I was going to joke and say is like, you know, we finally got the remastered. Some of us, you know, well, actually, I was around when Oblivion came out. But, you know, some of you Gen Zs or Gen Alphas out there never got the experience to play Oblivion, right? So you always wanted to experience the story, the lore. Nah, they just wanted to experience the domino effect. Oh, how it's just so wholesome. Just so wholesome to see. Full circle moment, HenricK, right?
Yeah.
But how? The placing of stuff is precisely as hard as F. Laughing out loud. Yeah, you know,
No,
it definitely really is.
Yeah,
like,
it must have taken quite some time to set that all up.
yeah, like how high were you when you made this? I bet you were giggling all the way, you magmaniacal bastard or
Megalomaniac.
You right. I love the language that's being presented to commentate on that video. And then how they have to do rotate and place objects in Oblivion. It doesn't work like Starfield or Skyrim. The patience to achieve this is godly, my friend. And then I spent the first 1 to 2 hours, this is the actual creator of that video, trying to learn how to place them good. After that, the stairs took 2 to 3 hours. Yeah, I can only imagine, you know, stacking the books on top of each other, because every time I tested it, it gave me different results. Every time I loaded the save, something broke. Ooh, the actual save becomes a problem. Okay, so maybe that permadeath comment actually had a point in the end. Okay, I just got debunked like within like a couple minutes. Live on Rage Quit Video Game Talk Show. Now that we have just warmed up, the engine is revving. We're feeling hot, baby. HenricK, are you ready to rock and roll, my friend?
Oh yeah, it's time to grab our super shotguns and get ready for the next one.
Hey everyone, this is Pause or Repeat. Here we figure out whether a game is really worth your time and money. Today's game is Doom: The Dark Ages. The modern Doom series is back, and this time with a prequel to the previous 2 games with different gameplay to boot. But will the game hold up to the praise of the first 2 in the trilogy? Let's find out by first going over the gameplay. The gameplay of Doom: The Dark Ages, while different than the previous 2, is still going to feel like modern Doom. You'll still be ripping and tearing through demons at a breakneck speed. However, not quite as fast as in Doom Eternal. While Eternal was all about movement and jumping from demon to demon while evading attacks, The Dark Ages is more about standing and fighting. This is mostly due to there being a shield saw and a bigger focus on melee than previous entries, with weapons like a flail or power gauntlets. The shield saw is a defense, weapon, and puzzle mechanic all in one, and is really the standout new feature of the game. You'll even be using the shield to dash across the battlefield and close the distance between enemies. This is your main movement ability. And of course, you can't forget the weapons, with series staples returning such as the shotgun and super shotgun, plasma guns, and more. There are even weapon upgrades and runes, which will also make a return from the previous 2 games. And alongside this, we've also got mech and dragon gameplay as the cherry on top. Now, since this is a prequel, how does this fit into the story? The story of Doom has never really been a huge focus. Gameplay has been more important. The Dark Ages aims to change that a bit with a lot more cutscenes and characters. You're still the Doomslayer, of course, but this time things are brought back to the war between Hell's forces and the Night Sentinels, backed by the Makers. The Makers have given the Slayer great power, but also put a leash on him. His will is not entirely his own. The story is mostly a setup for you to have an excuse to fight hordes of demons in traditional Doom fashion. But now the question still stands. Pause or repeat?
Somehow, power armor always looks better with a cloak. And making a big fur cloak, you got me sold on that look.
Yeah, you know what? I couldn't help but like think of Doom as like Sony's Kraven the Hunter.
Yeah, it does look like the same aesthetic. Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of, I definitely like the different approach because, obviously, Doom went from Space Marine on Mars to a medieval monster slayer, and somehow it still feels like home if your home was on fire and full of screaming demons, HenricK. I mean, Doom the Dark Ages ditches the spaceships for cathedrals, but make no mistake, this prequel to the Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal is less history lesson and more legend in the making.
Yes, because it is a prequel, and you could maybe say, okay, well, that's why it feels a little bit different, because there's different guns and abilities and all that sort of thing. But does it feel too different is the question, because they've got a little bit of a change in focus for the gameplay for this one. It's not as important to have a really good gun setup. It's actually more important in this one to have melee weapons be your primary damage dealer, because now you got things like a gauntlet, you got a flail, you got a big mace, and they really want you to use them, because not only do you have those, but you also have that shield saw. Yep. And all the abilities culminate in the fact that there are some enemy abilities that can be parried with your shield. And when you parry them, they get stunned a little bit, and that's when you're supposed to come in with your melee weapon and, wail on them a little bit. So that's really their flow state for this game is get in there with your shield, melee around a little bit, parry a couple attacks, maybe get out of there if you need to, shoot a little bit from the distance, and then go right back in. It's a little bit different than the past 2 games, and I don't know how I feel about it. What do you feel about that, Chris?
Well, for over 30 years, this franchise has been loud, a bloody heartbeat of the FPS genre. And now, Doom the Dark Ages throws that all in a Hellfire blender and catapults us back to a time when swords, castles, and demonic armor were all the rage. You nailed it, HenricK. I feel like the heavier focus is on the melee combat, and the Doomslayer swaps his usual guns blazing approach for a more up-close brutality, all while dual wielding medieval rage and a shield saw. The best way to describe it, HenricK, is it's like Captain America got possessed by a lawnmower. It is so freaking badass. I love it. I felt like an Avenger in the Doom universe.
It is very fun to just throw your shield out and get a few kills on the fodder enemies, as they call them. But why I feel conflicted about it at the same time is, yes, the dopamine hits are there. It feels great. But then I think about what it could have been if they continued with the Eternal formula. And I'm like, you know what? I feel like I like the Eternal formula better of, bouncing around from enemy to enemy, and even, vertically, not even just horizontally like you are in this game. Yeah. And Eternal's just a bit faster in general. Yeah, it's still pretty, fast in this game, but it's not as fast as Eternal was. What do you think about that? Chris.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I feel like, trying to bring back, the classic weapons like the super shotgun, but, the real highlight, of course, with this game that's a bit different is the combat and how it feels, right? It's chunky, grounded, but relentless. The enemies come at you in massive waves across enormous arenas, and the pacing never really lets up. I feel like, in my opinion, I mean, it was less bullet ballet and, more of like a medieval mosh pit. I think that was something kind of different and new. And you got to understand, it's the prequel. It's not what we know as, so I feel like they were trying to, I don't know. I feel like it still feels unmistakably Doom. It's still just as fast, just as gory, and louder than your neighbor's leaf blower at 7 a.m. I mean, it rocks.
Yeah, no, it definitely is still Doom at the end of the day. And don't get me wrong, guys, I do prefer this over a lot of the other things that have been coming out in the last couple of years. There's some stuff that's not that great out there. Won't name names, but I'm sure you guys can think of some. Yeah. But it's just an interesting choice that they decided to go in this direction, especially when it comes to the story, because I don't know if there's really that many people who think of a Doom game as like, yes, I'm going to play this because I care about the story. Like, I want the story to be very...
Well, in the modern series too, right? Doom, when they reintroduced it, came out in 2016. Doom Eternal, eventually came out later. Did you feel like that was a little bit of a wrong approach? Is that what you're kind of suggesting, that for the third installment in the modern series to go backwards rather than forward? Or do you feel like this was Bethesda's opportunity?
I'm okay with the prequel thing. That's totally fine by my standards, but I'm just confused why they thought that it was very important to put such more focus on the story, even so to the point where, like, the beginning of the game, when you press start, you're sitting there watching a cutscene for a couple minutes.
Yeah,
there's
really
cutscenes
badass
at the beginning of the first two games, and it's a cool cutscene, don't get me wrong,
but Henrik,
it feels a little slower to start, gets you to the action.
Well, a little bit in a sense, but I feel like
we're the action, Chris.
But you're talking about the dark fantasy prophecy, like those archaic realms and that demonic overlord trying to, wipe them off the face of existence. I feel like that's where the cinematic just felt brutal, and for once it feels like the Doomslayer isn't just ripping and tearing. He's got a purpose, and that's why I really enjoyed the cutscenes more than anything. And like, I don't want to spoil the end, but it felt so fulfilling. Felt great. I mean, it's a pretty, like, you could get this game done within like 2, grind out weekends, I would say.
Oh yeah, it's not super long.
Not super long. Yeah,
it does have a little bit of replayability if you want to go back and play even some of the levels to find secrets. But you're probably not going to find them all.
That's true, because you're going to definitely like picture blood-drenched castles, twisted forest, and like those hellish ruins, all dripping with the dread and detail. I mean, every frame looks like an album cover for a metal band that only performs during the eclipse. Okay, and like, let's just say it as it is. I mean, the soundtrack doesn't have the iconic Mick Gordon on it, but the new composers definitely understood the assignment, I felt like. I mean, but much like people...
They're good. They're not Mick Gordon, but they're good. They're good.
I don't know. I felt like it's a really, really badass, soundtrack. I thought it was really cool. I mean, you could definitely listen to it
I think it was
get work done in your office.
I think I was in Mission 4, and the music completely just cut out on me. So I thought I was in silence for like 30 minutes. I was like, okay, it's an interesting choice of them to... do this mission in silence. Typically,
well, that sounds like that needs a patch fix that needs to happen, but it didn't take away from the overall experience. I mean,
I do enjoy the music. I am a metal fan, just like you, Chris.
Yes.
So, but I enjoy the music.
But much like when, Ghost frontman fired, the entire band, ditched the whole Papa gear and came back as the Cardinal with the vengeance, the new team still delivers. It's a different vibe, but the spirit's still loud. It's theatrical and unholy in the best way. So I felt like they still kind of captured that magic, but, Doom traded Mars for medieval madness and somehow made the franchise even angrier. And the franchise takes a big swing here. And guess what? I feel like it lands, Henrik. This one's a repeat. It's got that very fun arcade kind of style of play. And if you were never a fan of Doom or have no idea or only know it as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, oh God, please jump on in. You're going to love Doom: The Dark Ages. What's your verdict, Henrik?
I'm actually going to go against you on this one. Okay. I'm going to say this is a pause. And the reason why is I like Doom 2016 and Eternal so much more, And when I was seeing this, for reference, I typically buy my games outright. This one, I played it on Game Pass because I didn't want to buy it outright. And that says something.
Well, I mean, I feel like that is where the future of gaming is going, right? I mean, if you have the option to go and get the Xbox Game Pass for $12.99 on the PC or pay $70 out front, what are you going to do? Especially when it drops as a day one release. I mean, I don't blame you, HenricK. I actually 110% support that route. Matter of fact. But then again, Doom the Dark Ages sold 3 million copies they're claiming. It's crazy. But hey, we're split on it, but we want to know from you, the gamers, are you vibing with Doom the Dark Ages? Are you like HenricK that's like, you know what? I understand what you were trying to do with the game, but let's just go back to what made the Doom franchise so special. Let us know what's good. But man, we got such a jam-packed show here on Rage Quit Video Game Talk Show. So HenricK The WrecK, are you ready to rock and roll, my friend?
You know me, Chris. I'm always ready. Let's get it.
What's good, listeners? Welcome to Patch Notes, where my co-host HenricK The WrecK and I discuss gaming news, industry talk, and so much more. Let's get it. Bungie, the studio behind Marathon, just pulled off the artistic equivalent of copy my homework, but change it a little, except they forgot the change it part. Make sure, as you are celebrating and getting your cap and gown during graduation week, do not do what this studio did during your equivalent of finals week, okay? They've officially admitted to using artwork in Marathon that wasn't theirs, but rather lifted directly from the artist ANTIREAL, whose original pieces date back to 2017. So as you will see on screen, this is the tweet that started it all. ANTIREAL posted a side-by-side receipt showing the Marathon assets weren't just inspired. They were practically a Control-C, Control-V copies right down to her personal logo. I mean, isn't that pretty wild, HenricK, when you just kind of look at it like that? I mean, I know it might seem a little small, but I mean, trust me, when you get those side-by-side comparisons, it's totally insane. And so the internet lit up like a plasma grenade, and Bungie released a statement faster than a Destiny nerf patch, blaming a former Bungie artist who allegedly snuck the decals into the texture sheet that made it into the current build. Okay, so it was a former Bungie artist, not the entire studio.
Yes, not forget the fact that they're all following this person on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. And so here's Marathon art director Joseph Cross admitting designs were stolen from ANTIREAL.
It came to our attention that an artist who worked on Marathon took elements from a graphic designer without permission or acknowledgement and placed them on a decal sheet that was then checked in 2020. The decal sheet included icons and text elements. These elements ended up in our alpha build, and there's absolutely no excuse for this oversight.
That guy is going through it in that stream. Like, if you guys haven't seen the full clip, it's a rough stream.
Well, as you should feel the repercussions. I mean, the current art team claims they had no idea, but let's be real, HenricK. I mean, they launched a full-on investigation in a tidal wave of spicy gamer reactions. So here's how the community is responding. So I cannot wait to dive right on in. Let's see what's going on. But before we even begin, here's ANTIREAL again, as she writes. Bungie is, of course, not obligated to hire me when making a game that draws overwhelmingly from the same design language I have redefined for the last decade, but clearly my work was good enough to be pillaged for ideas and plastered all over their game without pay or attribution. And so, HenricK, it's like, what do? Do they need more, human resources? I mean, the joke would be, hey, why don't you go and get like an AI model to be able to kind of siphon through all the art decal and text icons moving forward? Or do they just use their own AI model to manipulate the art and make it its own rendition, just like how everybody else can go on ChatGPT and go, make this Chris Collins look like a GTA character, but make it more Miami Vice and give me more of that, cell shaded flow that's showing up in those, trailers for Grand Theft Auto 6.
Yeah, it's hard to see if there's really any actual solution. Yeah, you can try to mitigate it as much as you can with AI, but it really comes down to, at least I see it coming down to it being a culture shift in the company of let's not just try to hit deadlines and get work out there. Let's actually try to be creative as people and not just steal people's work and think we're going to get away with it.
Yeah, it just feels like this could tumble like a Concord style level. But, well, then again, this is anti-real, further, pushing, the narrative of what's going on. And she says, I don't have the resources nor the energy to spare to pursue this legally, but I have lost count of the number of times a major company has deemed it easier to pay a designer to intimidate or steal my work than to write me an email. In 10 years, I have never made a consistent income from this work, and I am tired of designers from huge companies mood boarding and parasiting my designs while I struggle to make a living. And so I think that's all very, very fair. But, it's like what we've discussed in the past, oh my gosh, can you imagine trying to be a 2D artist today, with AI technology? It's like that kind of style of job is long gone. At the same
time, though, a lot of the reason why those companies, the big studios, are going to AI is, at least it feels like, it's because it's a cost-saving measure.
Right.
Guys, you are Bungie. You are a big studio. You could definitely afford to cash someone out a check if you're going to try to use their designs. And I guarantee you, this person's not going to be asking for as much as your art team is, because they're not part of your company. They're a third party. It would have been cheaper to actually just do that, and now you wouldn't have all this bad press.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what about the current Marathon employees and art team that are literally follow the artists on this app? Your whole art team follows the artist that has been developing this art style for 10 plus years, and you didn't think to give them any attribution? I mean, this isn't oopsie, you can blame it on a former employee. Your current employees follow this small artist with a niche style, and then you just coincidentally happen to launch an entire game themed after it. Yeah, nope, not buying it. So there's already that kind of style of protest happening right now, to support this artist. But then what happens if they do work something out? Will people still get in line and support Bungie's next Marathon project? But then, ooh, wow, this is Avalanche Games, iconic, creator here. And he's saying Bungie has got to take Marathon back to the drawing board, quite literally. This is the man who brought Helldivers 2 to us, and he's saying you get the whole DNA of Marathon.
No, yeah, it is the whole art style of the game.
I just don't see it, making a return. I mean, I think Marathon's finished. But let's continue moving this forward with the comments, as this one reads, this is what bugs me with Marathon situation. In the stream, the guy said it was just the decals, but it's the entire identity. The soul of Marathon is her entire portfolio. They said we'd love to work with her. Yeah, no shit. She's your art director at this point, bro. Yeah, that's a good point. It's not Joseph Cross. It's ANTIREAL that is Marathon's art director. Maybe they need to change the title of the name and make sure that the payroll goes towards ANTIREAL instead of, unfortunately, this jackass. And then last comment, how does this keep happening at Bungie? Seriously, it's like every year there's a new case of someone's art getting lifted. And so, yeah, what wild times that we live in. But HenricK, will gamers still rally behind Marathon when the entire premise and vibe of the game feels like they got yanked into a black hole?
Yeah, on one hand, I don't want to say, hey, this game, just shelve it. Don't do anything with it, because that's probably going to mean that people are going to lose their jobs. Because this is basically, when you think about it, when Bungie got bought by Sony, they started working on this pretty much immediately, I'm sure. And this is what Sony's invested a ton of time and money. And if this just goes away, that means people are going to lose their jobs.
Well, it feels like because of the name Bungie, Sony felt like they could have
come back from this.
Yeah, well, it seems like Sony's going to step in a little bit more often now. Just because you are that iconic name Bungie, maybe you don't get that, creative freedom anymore within this, their enterprise. And, you have to take into account, with ANTIREAL, her work went up in 2017, and by most accounts, Marathon started development around 2018. So it's like within the year, the whole DNA was being, stored and developed over not months, years upon years of development. And I think that's why that is the more of the wild part. And this is not the first time this has happened with Bungie. Matter of fact, this is, the fourth time now in the past 4 years, and the others with, Destiny fan art that was lifted in some capacity for the game or in merchandise, and that was from a third-party contractors. However, if that is in Bungie's in-house, I guess that's them, or is it not? I don't know. It's for you to the gamers to decide. But it's really, really insane how that keeps happening. And, you know, what do they do
when
next,
the
Henry?
common denominator is Bungie, it really means there's a problem in the studio with the way that this is being handled. And, you know, maybe it is a little bit more insight and oversight from Sony needs to come into play. You know, they need to be checking in more often. Or maybe it is just, hey, you guys got to hire people who aren't willing to be plagiarists and actually are willing to put in the time and effort to make art themselves. And maybe it's because they feel pressured to hit deadlines.
I just kind of think it's a little bit...
This.
On like a final note, Henrik, on this topic, I think it's a little bit, I mean, it's all just still kind of early. And I understand that we always talking about like toxic workforce and stuff like that all the time on Rage Quit. But in this particular situation, it's almost a little bit laughable in the early reportings right now after this whole mayhem just kind of started getting reported that they stole artwork. And then all of a sudden, within like 48 hours, they would be like, yeah, you know, Bungie was such a toxic workforce for me to work at. You know, we just felt like all these crunch deadlines and blah, 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 blah. No one wants to hear, you know, it's like you guys are what? We're now supposed to feel bad for you now that, you know, the studio's crumbling right in front of us. I mean, the iconic image that we get from Bungie is no longer our childhood today. It's like the same joke that they make with comparison to Naughty Dog, right? It's not the Crash Bandicoot of our childhood. So you can't like keep retaining to that, you know, still moving forward, right? So we'll see whether this, you know, sponges Bungie altogether. I truly believe it's done. This game's not coming. Marathon's going to be totally scrapped. It's going to be like X Defiant. I don't know. Does anybody remember X Defiant? Yeah, it's actually shutting down next month, like June 5th, I believe. That's going to be Marathon. Mark my words. That's what it's going to be. But Henrik, I want to know from you, do you feel like it's done for good, or do you think they're going to actually try to, you know, salvage it, you know, a little bit in a sense and try to repackage it?
It's not coming back. They just can't. They can't come back from it. Yeah.
All right. Well, you heard it from us, so we're gonna have to see what's good. But Henrik, let's start to switch some gears. Break it down.
Yes. So everyone's favorite game, FORTNITE, has just added an AI Darth Vader chatbot, complete with a digital clone of James Earl Jones's iconic voice. And naturally, gamers treated it with the respect and dignity it deserved for about 6 seconds.
Yeah, literally for about 6 seconds. How does that happen?
It didn't take long.
No, not at all.
Players were very quickly hurling Gooner questions and chaotic energy at him until he started cursing like a Sith with a stubbed toe.
Yeah, for real.
And Epic Games, you know, the developer of Fortnite, they jumped in faster than a Jedi in a boss fight to scrub the expletives. But as you'll see in this upcoming clip, that didn't stop the internet from finding creative new ways to push Darth Vader past the dark side and straight into patch note territory. So let's take a look.
Speak plainly, Beaner. Test my freak indeed. Gay form. The Thug Shaker. A Diddy party? Are you suggesting I have a foot fetish? Hawk tour. Loop shitter. Gay daughter. Skibbity Riz. Do you seek my preference in Yuri or Yahweh? Fucking bags, no balls. You are adopted. Big dildo.
And there's even crazier clips out there if you go digging on Twitter.
This is like, like maybe like PG-13 pushed it a little R. Rated R.
Yeah. Well, you know, let's see how the community responded to the madness with the following comments.
People were definitely quick to jump all over this. And the first comment we got was, what was Epic thinking with this AI Vader? You know, and I think a lot of us,
thinking.
You know, I think a lot of us were kind of wondering what the hell were they thinking? Well, you know, to kind of put a little bit of context because I think this is really, really important. James Earl Jones, who died in January 2024, played several iconic roles, right? You guys know him from Darth Vader, a Star Wars series. He's also known as Mufasa's voice in The Lion King. Well, in 2022, while James Earl Jones was still alive, Disney partnered with the Ukrainian AI company Respeecher to create an AI version of his voice that the studio could use for future projects involving Darth Vader. So I think that is really important to lay out because Jones's family came out and said, you know, Star Wars story, it's inseparable without his voice matched to Darth Vader. And so, you know, as much as you, the fan, might think it's kind of weird, like, yeah, I don't know about you, Henry. I thought it was a really cool experience on Friday trying it out, but I felt like it just felt kind of wrong in a sense. I feel like this kind of technology would be cool if it was more scripted and linear, not for the whole world to just go bananas on such an iconic character and put it into the Hawk 2 sense that we just heard live on Rage Quit.
Yeah, it probably would have been better if they had done, like you said, a scripted thing, like a TV show or a movie, and introduced it there, because you can actually prevent it from saying really unhinged things in a TV series or a movie, because it's a finished product. It's not like people actually talking to it in real time.
Yeah, exactly.
Response, so. Yeah.
But I feel like a little bit of a hypocrite in a sense too, because what if it's not like some iconic movie character that I grew up with my childhood? It's like a brand new NPC in The Witcher 4, and he starts doing this shit, and then all of a sudden I'm playing the game. I'm like, this is so cool, man. He's talking to me. He's giving me game plans on the battlefield. You know, he's actually doing what he's supposed to do, other than I have to ping him in one direction, like some of the shitty, you know, teamwork gameplay and some of these main story Call of Duty missions. We're actually getting something kind of cool. Then that's where I kind of feel like a hypocrite a little bit in a sense. But then this is going to kill the game. Voice actors will never want to work for Epic again after this. The actor strike was to prevent stuff like this. What the F is wrong with you, Tim Sweeney? So people are forgetting. They're like, we don't really care that, you know, Fortnite yesterday finally got Fortnite back on the iOS devices after 5 years, by the way. 5 years. That's insane. But like something like an AI Darth Vader, HenricK, do you truly believe this would be the end of all things Fortnite?
No. The unfortunate thing is, yes, SAG is still on strike, but people don't really know that they're still on strike. And I don't know if the majority of people really...
It's approaching the 1 year mark going into July.
Really even care. Yeah,
you know, that's kind of sad that you say that. I feel like you nailed it. You know, a lot of people don't even know the SAG strike is still happening. There's over 160,000 union members still affected by this. This is the voice artists and the mocap artists still fighting against AI protection and use, not just in video games. This would become, you know, with audio and you name it, your name, image, and likeness. But let's keep this moving. We also got a screenshot of another, you know, tweet. Fortnite added an AI Darth Vader using James Earl Jones' voice. You can talk to it through your mic. It's been out since this afternoon and has so far said multiple slurs, threatened to kill someone in real life, said Pride Month is for the delusional, eliminated players on the same side as him for calling him daddy, said Spanish is a language used by smugglers, asked someone if they like Chun-Li's ass, and then made a tier list of races. And, you know, this was all used by Google's Gemini. So what the hell is Google doing? You know what I mean? In a sense, like we could clown like Epic Games, but like, what the hell is their AI model trained on? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's kind of wild. And then you also get, this is where the fun begins. So like some people are like, I love this anarchy. Like this is awesome. Like this is like amazing, you know, milestone in video game development. And then you also get Jeff Knightley, you know, who is the man, you know, behind the Game Awards. And he has said SAG-AFTRA has filed an unfair labor practice charge against Epic for its use of AI for Darth Vader's voice in Fortnite. Fortnite's signatory company chose to replace the work of human performers with AI technology. Unfortunately, they did so without providing any notice of their intent to do this and without bargaining with us over the appropriate terms. You know what I find really laughable about this, as I have spoken out against SAG and how they are a bunch of hypocrites towards, you know, this whole protection against AI, you know, for their union members. Again, James Earl Jones' family gave the approval for Epic Games to make this happen. Second, yeah, James Earl Jones was a part of SAG-AFTRA, but once you are a deceased actor, you're no longer a part of the union anymore. And this is why I have a problem with SAG, because the only time they speak up is when they're not receiving a cut. That's the only time they ever speak up. And so that's what's really frustrating to me, Henrik. And let's go into the last comment we got here is, this is massively a publicity stunt. Yeah, as you can see here, no deceased actor are not considered members of SAG-AFTRA. SAG-AFTRA membership is for the living, working performers in the entertainment and media industry. Yeah, SAG, you do not own the actor once they die. And so it's very wild, you know, to kind of see this kind of stuff. But Henrik, if AI Darth Vader launching in Fortnite was this rocky, should we be bracing for a future where GTA's next protagonist argues with you about the side quests and asks for your emotional validation mid-car chase? I mean, the possibilities are endless. I mean, we're hearing about a sequel to Cyberpunk 2077. I mean, how much more futuristic can it get if, you know, the NPCs are starting to look like a photorealism, and then they're now having a full-on conversation with you, maybe talking about the New York Yankees and the New York Mets and whether the Juan Soto thing was a good idea to leave the Yankees? This is trippy. This is a wild world we're in.
I feel like I would still prefer there to just be an actual person voicing the character with written lines rather than talk to the character and get a response from an AI that's thinking on the spot. Not because I don't think it's cool. It is pretty cool, you know, that you can actually talk to a character, get a response from them in real time and not have to, you know, wait for forever for a response. It's pretty cool that that technology exists. But at the same time, it takes away from the art in a way, because there's a vision that the creative director and the director of the game have for the game. And when you all of a sudden are talking to a character that's just saying whatever, not necessarily, you know, what the directors envisioned, it takes away from the experience in some way. It can be a cool novelty, like in this, it's funny.
Right, yeah.
At the same time, it's Fortnite. Is it really a game to be so immersed into? Not really.
I would actually beg to differ with you, Henrik. You know, especially considering some of the, you know, commentary that we've been receiving from the past couple of weeks when it comes to, you know, I'm gonna bring it back to Disney. You know, they're talking about how they're going to bring a theme park to Abu Dhabi, and there are footage out there talking with some of the, you know, the theme park developers where they are focused on bringing interactivity to the theme parks with Fortnite. And people have to remember, you know, Disney has a 20% stake in Epic Games, and they are trying to bring more of the Disney characters to life in the video game and also to the parks. So don't you think it'd be a very fun experience to be able to talk to some of your favorite cartoon characters instead of standing in line for someone dressed up in a mascot as Minnie Mouse, when you can actually have that full-on conversation through somebody like in Jerry's World, where you could go to Cowboy Stadium and actually talk to the owner and be able to learn the history of how he bought the team. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the possibilities are really endless.
I see what you're saying, but at the same time, it's never going to be a in-person experience. That's still going to be much more memorable for a majority of the population than let's go sit down at the computer, or let's take a seat.
Well, I would imagine it would be like a big ass, you know? Like, have you ever remember last year? I don't know if you ever saw it, Henrik. They were doing it during one of the UFC pay-per-views. I can't remember which one, but they were like making it look like they were almost like in these boxes, like those girls at the red light district. You know what I mean? But it was like a hologram, but it looked so real. It looked like Sean O'Malley's taking a photo with you. That's kind of where I sense, you know, a little bit what, you know, video games in the theme park and that kind of, you know, CGI design and AI will bring moving forward. But then, you know, kind of going back to, you know, SAG and how they're upset that, you know, the Epic Games are kind of cutting corners in a sense, and maybe they kind of feel like, you know, as a counter argument, they feel like because Epic Games is kind of cutting corners using deceased actors to bypass, you know, some of the promises that Epic Games already signed into with SAG, maybe that's where they got the issue. But then again, Henrik, it's laughable with SAG in a sense, because it's like they want to do the right thing for their 160,000 union members and give them the right AI protection before, you know, ending the strike moving forward. But then last October, they inked a deal with an AI company called Ethnofox, which is, according to the union, the contract leads the field in performer compensation because it requires session fees as well as an ongoing revenue sharing through the life of the foundational model. So they feel like as long as they're paying the minimum fee that SAG requires, it all works out for them. But let's also not forget, too, in August, they also signed with an AI company called Narrative, without an E at the end. It's called Narrative, but without the E. But they allow their members to license their digital voice replica for use in audio ads. And also not this January, but last January, they gave a studio called Replica the ability to use members' AI digital voices in video games. And I think that's where the frustration lies. It's a bit laughable. I don't think they'll come to an agreement anytime soon, Henrik. And I don't think there's really any, I don't know. I don't think there's any real answer. It's not really promising right now as a voiceover actor today. And, whether people will continue to support Epic Games and Fortnite because of the use of AI. Because, again, Henrik, I thought people weren't going to vibe with the game if it had AI all littered in it. I don't know. It's starting to seem like gamers are starting to turn the tide.
It's like I was saying, a lot of people, when it comes down to it, probably don't really care if it's fun at the end of the day.
Exactly. I'm vibing with you.
That's the unfortunate thing about it. But
yeah.
But let us know what you guys think. The viewers, are you thinking it's okay to see more AI being used in games and voicing some of your favorite characters or new characters even? Let us know.
Yeah, I mean, do you vibe with NPC AI? I think it's pretty cool. But then again, we want to know from you, the gamers. But hey, let's go ahead and talk about this because this is becoming more of one of those headache kind of conversations because there's always another new jackass in the gaming industry that always has to speak on this even further. They're better off just staying quiet. But no, they feel like they have to validate themselves. So why not jump right on in and let you, the gamers, know what the hell's happening in the industry. So as we inch closer to the June launch of the Nintendo Switch 2 and its equally $80 to $90 price tags, gamers are having a full-on existential crisis over what's actually worth their cash. And meanwhile, former PlayStation Indies boss and internal Sony sensei Shohei Yoshida is chilling in a Zen garden, it feels like, of economic clarity, casually reminding everyone that, games getting pricier was basically overdue. Or were they? Should we listen to this guy after all? I don't know. But chatting with Critical Hits Games, Yoshida explained, when you look at life in general, other products have skyrocketed in price way more than games. So really, the industry was late to the party. Maybe they started hating that philosophy, Henrik. Electronics become so obsolete as they age. No, they wanted to see it, trickle on up. But then he hit us with the DLC. Not every game needs the same price tag. Yeah, the value, scope, budget, it all varies. So let the publishers decide what their work is worth. And so naturally, the internet responded with the emotional restraint of a Dark Souls boss at 1 HP. He's going to give it to you. He's going to be pissed. And here's how gamers...
They're swinging.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Just like how everybody's making fun of Claire Obscure and the Winda Perry. Okay, all right there. I do choose carefully by waiting until I get games 50% off or more off, or until certain ones have been out for a year and are now mostly or all patched up and actually finished. By then, they're usually on sale too. I know, isn't that kind of annoying? I mean, that's such a common theme, right, Henrik? Where you go and pay $70, $80 for a video game and then it's never complete.
Yep. No, it's the unfortunate truth of a lot of AAA games that come out is they're just not finished.
I mean, isn't that what's so annoying about, the new Mario Kart, that they want to pay $80 for digital and then $90 for physical. And then you just know they're going to drop like 4 DLC packs that's going to last for like 2 years. That's going to cost like maybe $40 each. And then really?
But in Nintendo's defense, I don't like the pricing of their game being $80 to $90 either. But at least the game is probably going to come out and be pretty finished aside from those extra characters.
Man, yeah, it better be finished with those kind of cartoon-ass designs. I mean, yeah, we all love them, but it better be finished. Jesus, Henrik. And he has a point. We shouldn't buy shitty games or too expensive games anymore. Let them lose their stocks and much money, and I'll bet they'll change, laughing out loud. And then a follow-up comment that reads, you're absolutely right, but Reddit has been saying to do that pretty much since Reddit existed. Long before $70 base game was the norm, companies know people will buy the shit. I mean, it's really amazing how it's always been like within 2 or 3 year gaps that it's gone from 60 to 70, now $80, and then you just wonder, well, when will it end, Henrik?
Yeah.
I mean,
Will it end when we hit 100?
Oh my gosh. And, and that's where, as much as cloud gaming becomes a benefit, this is where other, topics of conversation begin, you do hear with some of your favorite, AAA or, some studios like to call them quadruple A. They doubled the development cost over the years. And whether that's not very smart budgeting wise on their end might be something to discuss, and whether it's brought on the consumers and trying to bring in the lame excuse of tariffs as the reason why. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's going to mesh well, but yeah, I feel like there are still going to be gamers that will fall in line. But then you get comments like this. Easy to say for someone who makes $80 in the time it takes to drink a coffee. I would go even further and probably makes that per sip. So, people don't like when, guys like that, speak out on, consumer, financial literacy.
You guys aren't rich?
But then Claire Obscure says hi. I mean, imagine Claire Obscure would actually have been released under Ubisoft. Not only would it be a $70 with less content, it would probably have a battle pass, digital collector's edition, hiding another 20% of the game away for $30, microtransactions to speed up the experience gain, and therefore intentionally gimped experience for base users, and a lot of repetitive content to bulk up the runtime. That game under Ubisoft management would have been so much worse. Certain.
And it wouldn't be finished either. It would be buggy on launch and wouldn't have a complete cohesive storyline.
But I mean, doesn't that kind of go to like what's, some of the premise that some people feel? It's like just because the development cost, double the amount as, let's say, the original compared to your new sequel, that's the main reason why we have to pay $20 more on top of it, compared to like Claire Obscure, which had a very small studio with a lot of passion, with a lot of people that met together on Reddit that eventually got enough money involved to bring in a lot of, really cool outside, artists to the game, just like what you guys know as Daredevil in Disney's Marvel is leading the charge as one of the voiceover performers. I think it's a really, really cool thing when, passion, beats out, financial integrity in a sense, what I mean? It's crazy. And then let's go into this comment. As unhinged as this sounds, a lot of Redditors forget that tons of people out there have disposable income, and they do find it okay to purchase, for example, the latest Doom on day one with no hesitation. This, of course, has nothing to do with you being a millionaire or not. It's just a lot of people are accepting this new price. It's just a fact at this point. But another comment follows up on it and reads, I'm fine paying $80 for a game that will keep me entertained for longer than two $50 games would. That doesn't mean that I want the game to be bloated, but I'm fine paying $80 for the next Elder Scrolls or Fallout. Okay, and then that's where that kind of gets brought up, right? We found out with, Mafia, right? The new series that's going to be coming out. They're like, no, we're going to be charging, $50 for the price point for Mafia, the Old Country. And they confirmed, Henrik, that it was not an open world game, rather a linear narrative driven game. And so is that where price tag is going to start holding its value on whether you have more of an open world exploration or not?
I don't know if that's the only metric to go by, because if that were the case, then any open world game that is empty even could be at full price of $80. But I know that there's plenty of games out there that are full AAA titles and deliver less of an experience than a game that is 30, 40, maybe even $50. And Claire Obscure is a great example of that, actually, in more recent months, because that game, it's $50 and it delivers a great experience for $50, more so than a lot of games that have been coming out that are $70 at launch.
Yeah, and I feel like that's
that
why
game technically is kind of open world in a sense. Not really, maybe, but
But that's
It's
where,
a
you know,
big
like
game,
guys like
you know?
Yoshida go, well, you know, you guys need to decide, you know, but then, you know, what about this one? This one really started, you know, to pick up some traction when Randy Pitchford, you know, he is the boss man, you know, for the Borderlands 4 series that's going to be dropping later in September in the year 2025. While he, you know, was responding to this gentleman that you see with the first tweet down below, but he wrote like, are you going to make the game worth $80? And his response, Randy says, is A, not my call, even though he is the CEO. B, if you're a real fan, you'll find a way to make it happen. My local game store had Starflight for Sega Genesis for $80 in 1991 when I was just out of high school working minimum wage at an ice cream parlor in Pismo Beach, and I found a way to make it happen. And so that same person that asked the question responded back, bro, you can F off, Randy. Real fan? The F is wrong with you. I played Borderlands since its release in 2009. Every game I played since that release. It's clear gamers are on my side and agree with my take. You are the effing CEO, Randy. You have a say. You just don't want to effing admit it. And, you know, he was placed in front of the cameras yesterday. He was asked the same question. We're not even going to care to even show it live on air because this guy just dances around the question. He's just so full of shit. We all know he's going to try to label this like an $80 game on top of, you know, what left, you know, $100, you know, battle pass. You're probably gonna have to pay for some weapon skins too that probably should have been, you know, implemented in the game. But Henrik, so basically if your wallet's feeling light, I think it's time to start, you know, the creative financing, or maybe start selling ice cream at Pismo Beach this summer. What do you say?
Well, it's the thing too. It's like, especially in this time frame, I know there's a lot of people out there that are really penny pinching to make sure that they don't spend or overspend rather on things that they don't necessarily need. And unfortunately, when it comes to gaming, it is a little bit of a luxury. Yes, you could say everyone should be entitled to partake in art, but at the same time, if you go by that logic, $80 kind of ends up being a little expensive when people are trying to watch their money and their finances.
Well,
so,
especially...
Yeah, I feel these takes in this conversation from this year, because it's not just been these two people, it's been a lot of other people also.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, feels out of touch from reality. Not everyone has $80 to pay for a game. That's just the reality.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Nintendo openly shares this mindset, you know, and it's also very laughable too, because obviously, you know, the June launch of the Nintendo Switch 2 is, you know, definitely gonna have their fan base support them in full throttle, whether, you know, I'm vibing with it or not. But it is also laughable that the developer elected to price its strange Switch 2 tutorial welcome tour, it's called, at $10 instead of like PlayStation, you know, Astro's Playroom, which is just as comparable. That was for free on the PS5. Why do they feel like that is necessary? Please don't tell me it's tariffs. But then it's also hilarious too, because in a recent interview, IGN asked Take-Two boss Strauss Zelnick if the company would go to $80 for its game. And, you know, this is the game for like since January that's been rumored to be costing $100. Well, Zelnick doesn't want to say whether, you know, that is the case or not. He's just going to let it, you know, be a little soliloquy in a sense and go, well, the consumers would be willing to pay for the very best.
And here's the thing. If games are going to come out not finished at launch, and maybe if we can't expect the games to come out be finished at launch, and maybe the developers, can't expect people to be willing to pay $80 for the game.
Yeah.
Why would I pay for an unfinished product that has the promise of maybe being fixed at some point? It's a promise. I'm not going to pay for a promise.
Yeah, it's just
through their head for a second here.
Like, I get it with like Strauss Zelnick. They'll get away with the whole $80 price tag. I mean, when you got 475 million views, you know, all like wrapping up within, you know, 48 hours. Hype is definitely real, whether it might be a crash and burn on day one or not, right? But not every game gets to hold up to that same merit, you know? But then also that studio has, you know, Rockstar Games also has a risk to tarnish the whole brand of their studio, in a sense. If it doesn't launch in the same success that, you know, that everybody imagines, yeah, you know, it could be a little disastrous, I might add. But then again, you know, we got amazing games that we've reviewed on Pause and Repeat, like Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which sold an impressive 2 million copies despite being available on day one on Game Pass. That's incredible. Also think about Split Fiction, right? You know, they sold, you know, for $50 and so much more. And also 2K, like we referenced earlier, with Mafia, the Old Country. So just the fact that like $50 to $80 is just like this magical ballpark, kind of wild, especially when Helldivers 2, by the way, you can go land on Super Earth today for $40. It's still thriving. So freaking awesome. Do you like this forefront? Do you support this? Or are you going to go down more of the cloud gaming route? Let us know what's good. But hey, let's end out the show with a little bit of fun, because you know, this one's is it testing our skills or patience or our will to survive? What is it, Henrik?
Yeah, Reddit is back with another golden nugget, and this time a gamer posed the painfully relatable question: what gaming skills have you lost as you grew older? It's the kind of post that makes you sit up straight, squint at the screen, and wonder if muscle memory has an expiration date.
Yeah, right.
If the community swarmed, yeah, my reaction time. But the community swarmed the thread like it was a loot drop. So here's how it all played out.
Yeah, let's dive right on into the comments. I know these are going to be very, very juicy. The first one reads, the most important skill I lost is the time to play enough to stay good. Yep, when I was unemployed, I went from can't even see anyone in the top 3 in a match in Call of Duty, and now I'm employed again, and I'm like, where is everyone?
I mean, they do call it unemployment lobbies for a reason.
Oh, damn, you had to really go there, Henrik. I can't play competitive online games anymore. Genuinely stresses me out to the point it's not enjoyable in the slightest for me. I rarely, if ever, play online anymore. And then a follow-up comment that reads, I used to play League of Legends and Overwatch, and if there was one thing I learned about most online gamers is that they're angry. I stopped a few years back, prefer RPGs over getting called a noob by a 12-year-old. Yeah, you know what? I love playing ranked. I think I said this like last week or 2 weeks ago. And I got buddies out there that probably tuning in live that know that I get salty when they decide to not play ranked. And yeah, I might be a little aggressive in my commentary for my squad, Henrik, and maybe I should use better choice of words when I am directing them, but it's all love of the game in the end. Do you like ranked? Do you like competitive, or do you like to keep it casual? Me
personally, I usually do casual. If I'm going to do ranked, I'm not pulling in my friends unless they want to do it.
And what is the game?
If I'm doing ranked, I know what suffering is coming.
What's the game in mind when you're doing ranked? Is it Fortnite Festival? No, just kidding. Are you doing Marvel Rivals?
No. The thing I was doing recently in ranked, most recently, was Marvel Rivals, and doing that solo can be a struggle, but you know, you get through it.
With Marvel Rivals, I think of that.
Yourself a little bit.
I think of XQC when he's like, "Don't jump into Marvel Rivals if you're not ready to go to work."
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna be so mad at you. The ability to tolerate shit games, kind of going back to the whole $80 games conversation. This is definitely going to be more real today.
Yeah.
I was playing the new Test Drive Unlimited game, and there are missions where you have to deliver cars without damaging them. I was driving for about 10 minutes. Easy does it. No time limit. And in the last 100 meters, suddenly traffic cones spawn in front of me. I hit a few of them. Cars total loss. Mission failed. F that. Close the game immediately. It'd be like that when I try to replay Demon Souls. Like, I just get like, I lose my patience. Yeah, I love me a good Souls-like game, but like that shit, like, it's so humiliating after a while. Like,
it humbles you. It humbles you real quick.
And then I find myself having slower reflex, not as stubborn. I'm now very quickly to give up against bosses, and I have a harder time learning attack patterns. I'm the same with reflexes. Used to 360 no scope. Okay, pause. How do you have the same reflexes, used to be able to 360 no scope, and then just lose it all? How does that happen? I don't know if I'm buying that comment. I think someone's fronting right now. This guy's fronting, Henrik.
If you don't use it, you lose it.
He's fronting. I'm calling this guy out live on Rage Quit Video Game Talk Show. And now I'm just dead before I even see the shooter. Now, you're the kind of guy that we are going to give you a lot of very supportive chat. because you only got one kill in the squad and we want you to still stay up late all night, okay? You're that kind of guy. But as I got older, I actually tolerated more and more bullshit bosses. Since I got experience working with the true final boss, that is called middle management. And then you get comments like this: the ability and patience to solve puzzles, even if it takes me an hour. I had all the time in the world for my developing brain to figure out those puzzles. Now, on a good day, I have 2 hours after work before I'm too tired to play, and I'm not spending half of it on a puzzle, laughing my ass off. Straight to the walkthrough if I don't figure it out in 4 minutes. Do you get that kind of vibe? And I do, in a sense, a little bit.
Yeah,
like, especially when I already beat the game.
I've said this multiple times. If it's in the middle of a game and there's a puzzle and the game is not a puzzle game, it can be a little bit of a struggle for me to get it on the first few tries, just because I'm not in the mood for a puzzle in that moment. But at the same time, I do my best to stay away from looking up a guide, because when you do finally get that puzzle solved, it feels good to finally get through what you don't like.
I kind of relate to this comment in a sense, like only when it becomes when you finish the story. Like when I'm in story and there's a puzzle, I try not to ever look. And if I do look, I'm like really bad. It's like you said, like 20 to 30 minutes of just struggling over and over and over again. But if I've beaten the game and I'm just trying to complete a lot of the side quests and I get stuck, my patience falls to like about 4 minutes. If I can't figure it out within like 4 minutes, I'm like, fuck, screw this. I'm going straight to YouTube. Like, I just want my trophy. And then the last comment reads, this is going to sound odd, but the ability to play isometric RPGs. I used to love games like Fallout 2 or Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, but I fell out of that genre when I turned 18 around 14 years ago. And now I have extreme difficulty in enjoying to play these games. I really like Baldur's Gate 3, for example, but I got so accustomed to the first and third person RPGs that the ability to enjoy the old style isometric games is just gone. And that also parrying and Elden Ring changed my playstyle completely in that department. So like, very mixed takes when it comes to, gaming skills. And so Henrik, I mean, as you lose, your little sense of skill in a sense, as you get older, we're not the wee lads no more, like that lightning fast reflex, perfect aim, or the patience to sit through those 10-minute loading screens, without checking your phone, right? What is it, Henrik?
For me, it's actually the ability to be okay doing the majority of my gaming on mobile. And I don't mean my phone. I'm talking like mobile gaming when it was a Game Boy.
Okay. I thought you were about to be like, I need a thumb condom because my thumb keeps getting sweaty and it's sweating all over my Android.
It's more of if I'm playing a game and that I really enjoy, I want to play it on my computer with my nice monitor and everything, and I don't want to be stuck looking at a smaller screen.
Backbone.
I'm okay playing a good not majority, but a good chunk of games on my Steam Deck. That's okay. But when it comes to games like the most recent one that we just reviewed, Doom the Dark Age, I'm not playing that on mobile.
Be horrible.
I'm not playing that on mobile.
Yeah, I'm with you. Just a lot of like first-person shooters, I can't vibe with it. I mean, interesting that you're saying that too, because recent news is that Call of Duty Warzone on the phone is actually going to get shut down pretty soon. Very shocking. True, very, very shocking. Yeah. And they felt like even with their own like fan base, it just wasn't reflecting to the standards that they wanted to push moving forward. And maybe they're starting to see a shift of people like you. They're starting to feel the same way. It was cool. It was a niche then, but I just want it bigger and better. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm with you on that, Henrik. I mean, a mobile thing is very, very real. I feel like I've said this in the past too. I didn't have this noted down when I'm thinking about it, but you're making me think about it now. Just computer games in general. My fingers don't move like a tarantula anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I got to be very handheld with my controller. I love it. It's my kind of style of gameplay. Also, I kind of hinted it a little bit during the comments. Just the Soul-like games. I mean, honestly, I really, really do love them. I mean, there's something magical about walking into the fog gate, getting slapped into another dimension, thinking, we got this, Henrik. But let's be real. When we go to jump in to play Night Rain, we're going to probably die for the 20th time. And my overall determination is hanging on by a thread. And that thread is currently being stomped out by a flaming skull dog with the sword that is the size of a bus. And so these games don't just test our skills. They test you're a soul. That's why they're very soul-like, okay? I've spent hours.
And with
I've spent
Night
days.
Rain, it'll test the friend group's patience with
Oh
each
my
other.
gosh, whether they're willing to stay the whole entire night up until we beat that one pain in the ass boss, we're going to have to figure it out together, Henrik. I mean, we're going to have to beat that one boss, whether it's slowly memorizing every attack pattern like it's final week. For some of us out there, you know, I'm fully graduated. Oh, I couldn't imagine doing finals with all this AI nonsense today. Not like as if I needed it anyways. I'm such a smart guy. And no, stop clouding myself. But I mean, it's just mentally draining. I mean, it's you feel like you're going to become like physically hunched, like you're like a Victorian ghost. I don't know. I mean, it's emotionally fragile space that you go into when you play Souls-like games. We'll just leave it like that. I don't know if I'm just playing to have fun at this point, Henrik, as I get older, or if I'm just playing out of sheer spite. I really don't know. But that's video games for you in the end. But let us know, gamers, what is that gaming skill as you've gotten older that you've completely lost and it just doesn't hit the same for you like you were when you first jumped in? Let us know what's good. But man, we can't thank everyone for tuning in to Rage Quit, and make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a live show. This is my beautiful QR code. And so if you ever want to join in on the party and see all kinds of numerous content, you know where to find me.
And this is my QR code, so bask in its glory and go ahead and scan that, because there's tons of awesome content just waiting to be watched. So go leave me a comment so I can respond to you.
That's right. And we can't thank you, the gamers, for always tuning in live every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Without your support, gamers, this show would not be possible. And we're always live, whether it's from Twitch, Meta, or YouTube. So always make sure you subscribe. And we will see you next week, fam. Peace.
See ya.